Hello guys. I made this deck after seeing YCS top 8 of that Torossian guy and his Zombie Monarch build. I built this a couple days ago, and I did it to like the best of my ability to like what I thought his deck was. And after the list came out, I was off by like 3 cards, so I tweaked it a little bit, and now I'm only off by 1 card. I'm not running the 3 MSTs, but I'm really feeling like I'm going to throw those in. There's a lot of stuff that I can change about this, and I'll kind of get to it like when I do. So I guess here we go. 3 Caius, first off. He's like one of your big boss monsters. A lot of the deck kind of just stalls. Like you'll see, I run like 3 Reapers later on, and so it's just something you can sit on, and then you just plop a Caius, blow up stuff, attack, and then like banish himself for game. A lot of situations I see myself like running into multiple Caiuses and then like using them for other junk. So he's, you know, Caius, he does silly Caius things. 3 Rykos, he's one of the big lights of the deck. He blows up a card, plus he mills 3. The deck has a really high count, so a Ryko starts milling stuff, and it fuels Dark Arm that I run, and BLS and Chaos Sorcerer, and a bunch of other bullish shenanigans. 3 Reaper, like I said. He's a really good card to like sit on, and a lot of this deck is kind of just like making your opponent run out of steam, and then you can just plop a Reaper onto the field and attack directly and just start picking cards out of their hand, and then like the 1 or 2 cards that they can bring out, you can stop it with a lot of the spells and traps that you run, because you run a lot of them in 2s, so I'll get to those later on. I run 3 Effect Veilers. Sadly they don't match, but 3 Effect Veilers. Pretty much just for consistency, along with like the Caiuses, the Rykos, and the Spirit Reapers. You always want to have these in hand, because this deck, like I said, is just debunking your opponent and just stalling and letting them run out of steam. So because she's a light and she's a hand trap, she's just ridiculous in this deck. 2 Mystic Tomatoes. I've gotten a couple suggestions from a few people to run Pyramid Turtles over it. I decided to go Mystic Tomato still anyway, because he's got that little bit of extra attack that you can go for. He dodges Bottomless just by a little bit, as does Pyramid Turtle, but he's a dark. I mean, so he fits the Chaos engine, so it's a little bit better. I mean, some people say that Pyramid Turtle is better because they can come out in defense mode, and I don't know. I don't really feel like it's worth it. I saw that Torossian sided in Gravekeeper Spy, so I guess that's like another target you can bring out. There's a lot of darks in this deck that you can bring out too, like Sangan and Tour Guide, and I guess if you really have like a dead Tour Guide in deck, you have that option. I don't know, I like it a little bit better. 2 Card Troopers. If he was at 3, you'd run 3. He's a floater, like they kill it with anything. One of the best plays, I'll get to it later. Well, it's not a best play, but it's like such a fun opening hand that it really stops a lot, unless they have MST, which is not really that uncommon, but it's really fun if you can get going. But yeah, he mills 3, he's a floater. You can crash him into Thunder King. If Thunder King's like an issue for you, you can crash him into Aliases. You can crash him pretty much into any 19 beater. 2 Tour Guides, kind of self-explanatory. She's a really, really, really good dark that you can bring out my 1 Sangan with. Kind of just bring her out, bring out another one, bring out Sangan. You know, everybody kind of knows how to run her. Sometimes like you'll have like a dead Tour Guide in hand, like if you really want to go into Sangan. You kind of just use like Allure, because you run Allure in this deck too, if you want, but I do. To kind of just get the dead Tour Guide out of your hand, so just kind of just fodder for that. Then I run 1 Plaguespreader Zombie. I wasn't initially running him. I really don't know why. I kind of just didn't think of it. Some of the plays with him are kind of ridiculous, because you can bring him out off the 1 Mezuki you run as well. You can bring him out of your grave off of that. You can bring him out off of a Mystic Tomato. You can search him off of the Goblin Zombie you run too. And I don't know, he's just a really, really, really good card. He's really underestimated right now, especially because you run a Dark Armed in this deck too, so he adds that aspect of graveyard control. So yeah, he's really good. Mezuki, when he's in grave, you can kind of just banish him and bring out another zombie. I mean, another really self-explanatory dude. You can bring. I usually like to bring out Mezuki and kind of just beat with him, and when they finally kill him, I just bring out the Spirit Reaper again, and then I just sit on the Reaper. Goblin Zombie, when he dies, it's like a Sangan, but just for zombies, but it goes by 1200 defense, so pretty much every zombie in the deck you can search. Also, he's a dark, which is really good, and a really cool effect is when he deals damage to your opponent. I don't think it's by a direct attack, it could be wrong. Yeah, when he just deals damage to your opponent, they mill the top card of their deck. So I've run into a few situations where my opponent has like they're pretty much full of lights and darks in the graveyards, and I know they have a BLS coming because like they just haven't been hitting it all game. And you hit it, and you mill the BLS, and you just feel like a god because you just debunked everything they did from then on. Speaking of which, BLS, you kind of really need him. I mean, it's a chaos deck, like at heart. 3,000 beater, just plow over everything, banish stuff. He's just nutty. Plus, you can reborn him and call the haunted in. It's he shouldn't be allowed. Chaos Sorcerer, same thing. If you don't have a BLS, go Chaos Sorcerer. Plus, with the Veiler, you can open up into Synchroing a little bit. Plus, you can overlay with the Caiuses and go into Photon Strike Bouncer, which I do quite a bit. Because if you know Gores is coming and you just wiped out their field with the Chaos Sorcerer and the Caius, and you just want to beat for a bunch and then bring out Gores and then you deal even more damage, and then they're forced to crash. Run a bunch of darks. So, Dad, I've had situations where I've had a graveyard full of 6 darks at top deck Dad, and then gotten them out that turn, involving like Plaguespreader, Mezuki, Reaper, Reborn, Call, like a lot of stuff you can just plow Dad right out into the field, like, and they just can't do anything about it. I mean, there are a lot of outs for him right now, with like bottomlesses and warnings and judgments and stuff like that, but I don't know, I feel like just a 28 beater that can blow up essentially your opponent's entire field is really not something you want to go without. Okay, so that's the monsters. There's 25, I'm pretty sure. Alright, next. Alright, so for spells, I run 2 MSTs. Like I said, I'm thinking about bringing it up to 3. Back row is kind of an issue for this deck. I mean, I played a couple hero decks, and like, I don't think I played Gravekeepers, but I'm kind of looking forward to it. I mean, they're stuff with a lot of back row that's kind of stalling, or pretty much just controlling, is sort of an issue. I mean, this deck's kind of like that too, but if my opponent can kind of keep back row presence more than I can, I kind of just get pooped on. Heavy, spell, trap card, control again, Dark Hole, Book of Moon. Book of Moon's really cool in this deck because you can like save your Reapers and save pretty much anything. Allure of Darkness because you run a lot of darks, and Monster Reborn. I guess the spells are kind of self-explanatory. Traps. I run pretty much 2 of everything. 2 Deep Prisons. Just it doesn't destroy anything, so Stardust, Starlight, anything that negates destruction can't do anything against this. Kind of Deep Prison kind of belongs on a lot of stuff. Compulsories. You can get a lot of nutty plays with this. I saw Torossian only ran 1. I would suggest running 2 or 3, even if you kind of want to go at that route. But like, you can save your big cards like Dad or BLS or Gores. Gores. I wish I ran a Gores. I'm thinking about running one. But you can pretty much run whatever you want and just bounce it back to your hand if they bottomless. I had a few plays where I'd drop a Dad, like my opponent would see it set up and they'd have like the bottomless set, and they're so excited that like they're finally going to kill the Dad like before it even does anything. Drop Dad. Oh, I'll bottomless it, and then you compulse it right back to your hand, and you're like, haha, drop Dad again. That's one less thing I have to worry about, and then you blow up more cards and beat, and then you still have resources left. So compulsory is really good. 2 Call of the Haunted. I saw that Torossian ran 3. I think it's a little bit of overkill because sometimes it's dead, but I might try it at 3 because there's a lot of fun plays with it. I was actually playing Lightsworns earlier tonight, and I set 1 call, and he top deck an MST and go for it. And then I'd bring it back with the card trooper, and then I drew into another call, and then I top deck I can't remember, something that was pretty useful for the turn. It may have been like a Dark Hole or something like that. And then I'd set the next call, and then he'd top deck another MST, and I'd play the other call and bring up card trooper again and get another draw. You can do it with like Sangan and card trooper as well. Plus you can just bring out some of your big beaters, like say you already summoned a BLS and they're going to like beat you over the head with like pretty much anything smaller than 3,000. Just bring back BLS and beat with that. 2 bottomlesses. Things like Ryko, Dad, Gores. Gores. Jesus, I keep saying Gores when I mean BLS. Anything big that can kind of beat you over the head. Yeah, Grapha too. Anything that can beat you over the head that you don't have to pay anything for and just get it out of the game completely. It's pretty clutch. 2 Torrentials. This is my favorite card in this deck. It's such a simple play, and it's like so childish, but like I just get such a jolly when I set a Torrential, summon a Mezuki, or set a Torrential, summon a card trooper or summon a Sangan, I can just laugh at my opponent because whatever they do, I'm taking out their card and then adding a card to hand, or I'm setting up for my grave for my zombies and just setting up for plays later on. It's just the bee's knees. Plus, if you're playing something that just like explodes, like windups or something, just let them get a few summons off, and then torrential, you get a draw off card trooper, and they lose their whole line of resources. And then I run the Solemn Brigade. Judgment's a little iffy. I mean, I've noticed a lot of people don't run it in decks at all. I think Torossian ran one too. Sometimes it's really dead, but like late game, I had a situation where I was playing against heroes, and we were both surviving off top decks, and I brought up Catastrophe, and I drew a Judgment, and I set it, and it ended up saving me the game. Because he ended up top decking Miracle, and I knew he had a Gores in hand because he top decked it a little bit earlier, or he added it to his hand with something. I can't really remember. I think it was like a duality or something. But yeah, it was kind of just like beating over dudes. I said I ran a Catastrophe. I would have preferred to go into Magical Android. The extra deck isn't exactly complete, but yeah. So I run a Gachi. I saw that Torossian ran a Daigusto Phoenix. It's a good card. I mean, Daigusto Phoenix is a wind 15, and you can detach one to the target any wind card and attack twice. I prefer Gachi in this situation just because I do run a Stardust, but you're not really going to get out the Daigusto and the Stardust. And I feel like a lot of the time, you're kind of just trying to like slow your opponent down, so they're probably going to have back row anyway. So I Gachi coming out with 22 defense and buffing like your Spirit Reapers especially is a really, really strong play for the deck. Plus he's another like wall your opponent has to run to. I run a Zen Mains, same thing. I find myself first turn Tour Guide, Zen Mains, and then leaving the Sangan in the deck. I don't run a Night Assailant. I should have probably gotten that earlier, but I kind of am considering going into it because he does kind of the same thing as Ryko. I mean, you don't get to mill or blow up like a Spell or Trap, but he's just like something that they can run into, take out their monster with it, and then he's a dark that you can fuel for later. Plus, if you're playing Dark Worlds, which a lot of people are still running, I still run into them a little bit, they ditch your Night Assailant, and you get your Ryko back to blow up something later on. Levier. Levier is essential to this deck. I really feel like you need it if you're going to run it at all, because the Chaos Sorcerer, the Dad, the BLS, everything is going to be banished, including the Plaguespreader who banishes himself, and the Mezuki especially. A lot of fun plays if you're kind of just beating your opponent over the head, and you're kind of just using your zombies from the grave, like Tour Guide, or sitting on a couple Reapers, and you know like your opponent doesn't really have any more outs to it. You kind of clear their field a little bit. You go into a Levier after you've brought a monster back and bring out Mezuki back, and then you can use this card again. I mean, he's limited for a reason. It's just, I mean, I know the zombies don't seem like they're a big threat, but they really are. I mean, everybody knows how like really threatening samurais are and how explosive they are. And once they explode and they run into a Spirit Reaper, they're like, oh, cool, what do I do against this? And I have to search my deck for like my 2 resources that I can get away from it. And then when they finally do, you bring out Levier and Mezuki back, and then they have to go around it again. So I think Levier is pretty nutty. I mean, plus there's that aspect of taking your opponent's monsters too. I mean, he's a poopy card. Leviathan, he's just a 25 beater. This extra deck really has a lot of space. You can kind of squish in whatever you want. I'm kind of thinking about putting in that stupid Chronomaly card. She's a 2100. Does somebody have one? She's a 2100 3 rank. When she's targeted for an attack, you can detach a material. She's not destroyed by battle or card effects for the turn, so cards like Tyrus and stuff like that. Also, if you take any battle damage with her on the field, it's redirected to your opponent instead. So she's kind of like another mini Zen Mains or a mini Gachi. She's just a really cool card. Plus she's a 2100, so she's like kind of on the opposite end, so she can kind of deal a little bit of damage as well. I also run an Acid Golem. This one put in work. I was playing Lightsworns, and Lightsworns are a little hard to keep up with because they can explode so fast before I can like kind of debunk them a little bit. I mean, I was playing a Lightsworn player earlier today, and he milled his first 3 first turn, and second turn he milled his 4th, and then started his JDs just coming out of nowhere. So I finally had to just like, alright, screw it, Book of Moon, Golem. Maestroke, again, he's kind of like a 4 rank Zen Mains. He books stuff down. I don't know, he's just a really good blocker, plus he has the 1800 defense and the 21 defense, I mean 23 defense. He's just good, kind of all around. Papal Operative. I don't really go into her much, but when you do, she is kind of nutty. She kills pretty much anything you want in face-down defense. I run a Photon Strike Bouncer. I don't get it out as often as I'd like, but I do it pretty much every time I get the situation to, because he just stops so much, along with dealing damage and his heavy attack. He's just... Yeah, I just can't handle how good this card is. He's one of my favorites. I run an Armory Arm. You can plop it on pretty much whatever you want. It's easy to get out in this deck too, with the Rykos and the Spirit Reapers and the Plague and the Veilers. Just all the level 3s and the 2s and just stuff. He's fantastic. Cataster. I want to fit in a Magical Android too. Cataster's good because he takes out all those lights like BLS and goofy stuff like that. Plus, if I had an Android, which I don't because I'm a scrub, you can kind of just sit on her, and with all the back row support in here too, you can kind of just gain life points, gain life points, gain life points. Plus, you can power over stuff too and deal some damage. Alright, now don't laugh at this, but I run Urquizaz. I don't like it. This card is coming out the second I get a Revive King Hades because I don't have one, and I really agree with what Torossian was running him for. I don't know if this is what he was running it for, but Revive King Hades, when he kills a monster or any other zombie kills a monster, its effect is negated. So, like, if you attack over, like, a big monster or a Treeborn or anything like that, like a Grapha, for instance, it can't come back from the grave because its effect is negated, so it's just a dead card in the grave. So that's kind of cool. I run a Black Rose. I saw that Torossian didn't. I had a ridiculous play with Black Rose. I had, like, a Dark in my grave and I think a Sangan and a Reaper on the field. And I normal summoned my Veiler to sink for a Black Rose, and I bombed the field, taking out, like, 5 cards with it. And then I had 3 Darks and a Light Engrave, drop Dad, drop BLS, and then just start beating my opponent over the head. I run Stardust. Stardust. You can kind of take him out. He's kind of whatever you want. I mean, you don't really go into 8s that much. I mean, you have the option to, but a lot of the time you kind of just want your opponent to kind of run out of resources before you go into him. So you might not really want to bring out the Stardust at that point. But, I mean, negating destructions, keep coming back. I mean, he's pretty decent. Scrapdragon. I really like him in this deck because you always have a card on the field most of the time. Well, mostly a monster. You don't really have back row all the time because you kind of just want to get it out when you get it out. You're not really going to set your whole hand. But yeah, Scrapdragon, blow up a card, start beating them over the head with 28. And then the last one is Chimera Tech. In my side, I run quite a few Cyber Dragons, so cards like Geargia, decks like Geargia, well, pretty much, yeah, just Geargia. You're just going to go into Chimera Tech and poop. I'm not really going to show you my side deck. My side deck is kind of crummy right now, but just make it up as you go. I mean, you have a lot of room in this deck, so you can kind of just go throw in more like standard lights, more standard darks, and stuff like that. One of the things I saw Torossian sided was 3 Dust Tornadoes. I'd really suggest it in this deck because back row is such an issue. So yeah, that's kind of all my reasoning. I probably sound like a dink, but there you go. There's my version of Nareg Torossian's deck.